Alright, we got a 2013 Chevrolet Malibu here. We're going to be replacing this driver's side CV axle over here, so let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, went ahead and chalked the rear tire here first off. Okay, I've got a 19 millimeter here. We're going to go ahead and just start breaking these loose slightly. And then once we get these, we'll go ahead and start lifting the vehicle up. Okay, just to show you my lift point I'm using is this spot right here on the frame. And if you go over here, I've got a jack stand positioned right under that control arm. So we're just going to leave the jack and that in place. Now we can go ahead and safely remove the tire completely. Okay, we got the wheel off. We're going to go ahead and punch this center cap. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the wheel back on. Okay, we're just going to put two of these lugs back in place here. Put one there. Put one down here just to hold it. And we'll go ahead and snug those up. Okay, we need to remove our jack stand for a moment, and we're going to go ahead and lower this back down. Okay, this is going to be really tight, so we're going to get the weight back on to the vehicle, or onto the wheel, and we've got the tires chalked, so it's not going to move on us. Okay, so we're going to need a socket for this. You can either use an 1.25" or a 32. Either one will work. Actually, my big one's not going to fit, so I'm going to have to use my 32. This one's more of a thick walled for my 3/4 drive, so I'm going to have to adapt down to this 1/2 inch here. You can see we got this. Now the only problem with this is that you can break these, and I have broken. Okay, so you can see I got my breaker bar, and then I've got a cheater pipe. Got about close to 4 foot of length here all together. Okay, so here we go. Usually these are pretty tight, but they're usually no match for this extension. Okay, now that came loose very easy. A lot easier than I thought it would. Don't even know that I needed the cheater pipe. I'm going to go ahead and finish loosening that a little more. And it does help to spray it with some penetrating oil, but I didn't think to put any on there, but it's coming pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and just finish taking this all the way off here. Okay, so I'm going to have to get the wheel off here because it won't fit through there. Okay, so we got the jack lifted back up, and we got our jack stand back under there. We're going to go ahead and take this wheel off. Okay, so we're going to get this back out of the way. Right, now we can go ahead and remove our axle nut. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do is spray this with some spray lubricant. Okay, now this one is not moving. Okay, there we go. That's what you want to see. If it wasn't moving, then we're going to have a problem, and we're going to have to so I've got a rubber mallet, but if it is stuck, you'll want to take and put your nut back on there a good little bit, and you'll take your socket, instead of hitting the end of that, you'll hit the end of your socket where you're not damaging your threads. But this in here came loose with no issues. Okay, so the first thing I did is went in and turned the wheel, cut it to the left there to make it easier. Now you could remove this in one or two ways. We can remove the caliper here by removing these 14s, or we can remove the big bolts down here and remove the whole entire bracket. And I'm going to go ahead and just remove the caliper this time, and it gives us a good opportunity to check this slide grease in here too. And I'm going to leave a link to that slide grease. Very important to check these. You see, I'm just working on this upper one now, and we're going to pop this rubber boot out of here too. Okay, and there's that top one. Those are both exactly the same. Okay, at this point I'm going to see if I can't just wiggle this off of here. And there it came off easily. Good time to inspect your brakes. You can see we still got probably 1/4 of an inch. They're not terrible, but you know, we know where they're at. Okay, then we need to pop this up and out of there. Okay, as you can see, we just took a piece of wire, wrapped it on the spring, and just run it through this hole just to keep it out of the way. Okay, I went ahead and straightened the wheel again. We got an 18 bolt head on this side. We're going to hold that with a wrench, and then we're going to use an extended handle ratchet with an 18 on this side, and this is going to be very tight to get loose. So you're going to need either a breaker bar or an extended ratchet. So I'm removing the nut side here, and we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to go ahead and take that nut side completely off, and then we'll work the bolts out. Okay, you'll note the bevel on this right here. Okay, so we can carefully tap that with a hammer without harming our threads. I'm just going to do the same thing at the bottom. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and work that on through. Okay, and this is going to drop down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to kind of push this in while we're working the top down. And then we'll reach behind, and we can just finish completely pulling that out of there. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to need a 3-foot or 36-inch crowbar. And what we're going to do is we're going to be going right up in here and getting behind this right here. Before we do that, we're going to get us a pan. Okay, we want to put our pan right underneath that CV axle where it goes into the transmission. Okay, so all we're doing is going up in here and we're hooking on this just right behind that CV axle there, and we're going to kind of rock it back and forth a little bit against the transmission. Okay, so there I have it hooked. We're going to carefully just pop that. And you can see we've already moved it. Just need a little more. And there we have it. We'll go ahead and pull it out. Make sure our pan's in a position so any fluid go right down in our pan. We're going to be putting back dexron 6. So we're going to let it drain whatever it drains out. We're going to put it back exactly what comes out. Okay, and now is a good time to replace this seal here, your output or CV axle seal here. And these aren't very expensive, about $10. You pop that out and you tap your new one in. So if you have any leakage around there prior to removing this, then you'll want to go ahead and address that. And, you know, when you put a new one on, make absolutely sure that you put clean transmission fluid on that seal before you pop your CV axle back in place. Okay, so going back in with your replacement CV axle, once you have that, you're just going to go right back in here. And a lot of times you can just kind of use a hammer action and just pop it right back in there. Okay, and before putting this back together, you want to spray your splines down with a little white lithium. Okay, so we're just going to slide that back into place. Okay, sometimes you need like 2 or 3 hands. You know, we got to pull this up. You want to be careful with your new CV, but we also have to straighten this out. So we're going to have to pull this around and get it straight and then pick that up. One important note, do not overextend your joints when you are putting this back in. Keep pressure, keep picked up on this. Do not let this overextend. Okay, so you have to hold this straight when you get this started, and then you just essentially slide it up, but it kind of wants to go crooked on you. So that's probably the trickiest part. Just wiggle these until you get it to slide through. Same thing for the lower, you'll have to and these are self-locking. Now I would point out, even though this bolt was splined, both of them are splined, it does not prevent it from turning. At least it doesn't on this car. So you will have to hold this side over here with an 18 while you're tightening up this one right here. Right, so we're just going to go ahead and start tightening these up, get them snugged up. Alright, we got our torque wrench set on 130 foot-pounds. If you're not using a torque wrench, I'll just say, you know, get it really good and tight. And again, you'll have to hold this over here with this 18 to keep that bolt from turning. Right, so we got the upper one. We'll just get this bottom one torqued. We're just going to get this on here and just kind of snug it up. We'll give it the final torque once we get the vehicle wheel back on and get the weight lowered back down onto the ground there. Just going to snug it up a little bit. Alright, it's about as much as we can do Take the time to pop these out, make sure they got grease. These look fine. Okay, we're just getting ready to slide this back on. We shouldn't have any difficulty. It did come off fairly easy. So just going to line up we're going to line these up. Okay, and I always point this out, you want to make sure that you get these threaded by hand before you go to putting a wrench on it. So just work it up into place. Okay, so we got the top one started by hand. We'll go ahead and get the bottom. And if you can't get it threaded by hand, then you want to check your alignment, because it's very easy to cross thread these. So when aligning this, a lot of times what you may have to do is like wiggle it back and forth or up and down or whatever. You should be able to get these to thread all the way down with just your fingers though. I learned the hard way a long time ago. Okay, so we got our torque wrench set to 25 foot-pounds. 20 to 25 would be fine. Really, you know, it's calling for 25, but I think that 20 is fine for these little bolts. Main thing, just don't over tighten them. Don't strip them. So we'll get on the lower one. Okay, I gotta say, I'd usually never have these things turn on me when I'm tightening them, but this one is. So I've got a 17 millimeter here, and it's thin enough to actually fit in here. So this is kind of what size you need. So that's what I'm doing here, so I don't run into this a whole lot. But it just didn't quite get the torque before it started spinning, but it's good now. Alright, we'll go ahead and pop this little rubber brake line piece back in. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and get our wheel back on here. And we've got the center piece out, so we'll be able to get our torque. We'll go ahead and lower it back down. Okay, we'll start off with our lug nuts going 100 foot-pounds. Our 32 millimeter axle nut, we're going to go 180 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench that can do this, then just get your breaker bar, get it as tight as you can get it, you know, with your breaker bar. And but if you do have a big enough one, you know, you can go, most of them will go up to 150. You can go 150 and then turn it a little bit more. Okay, we just got to replace our cap here. Okay, so we got our pan of fluid. We just got a little quart container. We're going to pour it up and see how much we got here. This stuff is really black. The transmission fluid should never look like this. Now, a lot of times what'll happen, you'll get it cleaned out and then you'll start having transmission problems. It's really weird, but you know, they always say, like, if you're gonna do it, keep your transmission fluid changed, keep it clean. Otherwise, you're better off just leaving it alone. Alright, as you can see, we've got not quite a quart, but like right at this 800 mark, I guess. So we're going to want to pour back exactly that much. Okay, so we're on the hood here. We got this Dexron 6 Mercon LV. So we're going to be putting this back in here. The main thing, just make sure you got something that says Dexron 6 on it. Okay, you want you a long funnel, kind of like so. Right, and pay no mind to all this setup. Somebody had put the wrong battery in here and it's kind of got everything out of whack. But look down here, you can see the cap. I'm taking it off right there. You can see that. Let me zoom in there a little bit. That's your cap, your fill cap. Just take that off. We're going to get our long funnel right down in there. We got to move wires or whatever we got to do. Then we move wires. But we want to make sure that funnel is going to stay in there. Alright, so at this point we're just going to go ahead and pour back in what we took out, that 800 milliliters, and we'll put the cap back on here. Right, so I'm just getting the cap back on. Now it is possible that the correct amount of fluid wasn't in it to begin with. In that case, what you have to do is remove the wheel over there. It's got to be warmed up, running and everything, and it should be just barely drizzling out. Alright, so once you have the transmission fluid top back off, congratulations, you've successfully changed out your CV axle. Now you could leave that cap off of your tire, and after you drive it a bit, go back and double check the torque. Make sure you got the 180 foot-pounds on that axle nut. It's really not too bad of a job, but anyways, I hope you found the video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you hadn't already. As always, I thank you for watching.